Hey leaders, I want to take just a few minutes to talk to you about the idea of reduce and concentrate. In private schools, typically the classroom size is reduced, and the idea is that a teacher can give greater concentration to the students, but also the students can give greater concentration to the material. And we even see this in the life of Jesus. He spoke to hundreds, he spoke to thousands and multitudes, but then he grabbed 12 guys that he pulled in really close to him. And within those 12, he even had three that he spent even more time with. Three that only saw him on the mountain when he was transfigured and changed. They saw him and heard him in a way that the other nine didn't. And so I want to take just a moment to remind us why we've moved to this small group structure, why we reduced from weekly large group gatherings to a monthly large group gathering and then weekly small groups. We've reduced so that we could concentrate. And there's really three things that I think we get to do. The first one is we get concentrated care. And within that, there's kind of three things that happen there in concentrated care. We get to observe, assess, and then give one-on-one attention. See, when there's a smaller group, the same as there is maybe in a private school classroom, the teacher has a greater ability to observe the students, to learn their personalities and how they learn best and the way they communicate, and even to the point that they could really observe them well enough to know maybe when they need that extra encouragement. That's kind of where the assess comes in, is we're able to observe the students better in our small groups and see them and call out their name every week and talk to them. We get to assess where they're at. And through that observation and that assessment, then we get to give the one-on-one care. And maybe that's just an extra text in the week. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe that's going to Dairy Queen. Or maybe it's just a word of encouragement that night, that you take a moment when everybody steps out and you say, hey, let me talk to you for a minute. And you just ask, hey, what's going on? You just seemed a little bit different. And oftentimes that is just that extra level of concentrated care that a student needs. The second thing is that there's concentrated engagement for us and for the students. See, in a small group gathering, they're able to ask questions. In a large group gathering, that's not necessarily appropriate. It's not the place to raise your hand and ask questions. But in a small group gathering, students can ask questions. I don't have any problem with one of my guys in my small group stopping and saying, I don't understand that. The other thing that it does is that with the concentrated engagement, it causes students a lot of times, if we're doing our job and kind of asking questions, it forces them to think and really figure out the motive behind the way they think, the way they act, why they do what they do and say what they say and think what they think, because oftentimes we get a shallow answer. But we're able to give that concentrated engagement and ask a couple of more questions and peel back those layers and really get down to the root and down to the motive of, again, why they think, do, or say the things or act the ways that they do. And I also like to say that we get the opportunity to take a scenic route. In that large group gathering, you're kind of on this linear path because you're moving toward this destination. But in the small group gathering, if you feel there's a need to kind of divert from the path of the curriculum and explore this other road, you can do that. And you can take a minute to talk and then eventually bring your way back around to the central theme. But you have the freedom to do that, to give concentrated engagement. And the last one is there's concentrated community. That in a small group, students are able to build closer friendships and learn from one another, and even in some cases get annoyed at each other. And you'll see, I know in my small group I've seen some personalities clash, but that's all part of the growth process. And we have that concentrated community. We've seen in small groups where students that are maybe forced to come to small group from their parents, they come in and they're a little standoffish, but then they start to open up and they get engaged by other students or by a leader, and that community draws them in, and all of a sudden they leave saying, man, I love small group and I'll be back next week. The other thing with concentrated community is that students, when they're able to share their mistakes or share their doubts or their fears or their struggles, and even a leader is able to do that, it's kind of like there's shared struggles, but at the same time, because of that, there's shared encouragement. Because one of the big things is they realize they're not alone. They think that way, or other people think the way that they think or feel the way that they feel. When I, as their pastor, a lot of times can share, man, there's sometimes I open my Bible and I don't feel like I'm connecting. All of a sudden they're like, whoa, I thought I was the only one that was feeling that way. And so we have that concentrated community. One of the big debates around classroom sizes not being the answer in and of itself is that the teacher is a big role in that. That you can't just reduce a classroom size and all of a sudden expect there to be this greater concentration from students. You have to have a teacher that understands the dynamics of that group and can effectively take advantage of that smaller classroom and give it all its worth. And so, in the same thing, as small group leaders, just reducing the small groups isn't the answer alone, because we have to know how to make the most of that time with our small group. And so, over the next few weeks, my hope is to be able to share with you some tactics and some different strategies and things like that that can help you make the most of the time you have with your small group. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for making the difference in the lives of students. Not just a difference, the difference. And thank you for making us better.